It's Monday, the 27th of August, 2012, and in this Boardroom Talk special It's Monday, the 27th of August, 2012, and in this Boardroom Talk special podcast, Brian Joffee, Chief Executive of Bidvest, is with us in studio. Another good year for conglomerates. Headline earnings per share on a normalized basis up by 17%. It's not bad, Brian, in an economy where the inflation rate's about 6%.
Alec, for 24 years I've been trying to explain to you what a conglomerate is. And you don't seem to want to listen.
Well, I do now. I'm all ears now, Brian, and I think the world should be.
Well, Bidvest is not a conglomerate to start with. That's why we're doing so well.
All right. Tell me what the difference is between Bidvest and conglomerates.
Well, conglomerates is basically an investment company. Bidvest is a holding company which owns 100% of every single activity that it does. I think the only thing which confuses is that, of course, we're multifaceted and have very many varied activities, but we manage these things in a very decentralized and focused way. So it's not really an investment conglomerate, which I think defines conglomerate more so than somebody who manages businesses.
I will certainly bow to your superior knowledge.
Well, I don't know. I may well be wrong, Alex, but just a good talking point.
But the driver is, and you made the mention of this again in today's results, is incentivization. You've got that right.
Well, I think that what we have seemingly got right is that we do have a motivated employee base and a skilled employee base, and we spent a lot of money in getting that right. I think also during this year, the effects or the start of the effects of our reorganized divisional and succession planning processes is showing some form of dividend. And I think that's probably the biggest single driver in South Africa for success has been our much more focused and scaled down organization in its various components. So we're much more focused now, and I think we've cleaned up a lot of unperforming assets that we may have had in the past. And to some degree that's manifested in this industrial division, which you're probably going to ask, why is it down? And the reason for that is that many of those assets have landed up in this division, and I think the performance of the management in getting that sorted out has been quite commendable, and we'll see that in the next period we won't have such a decline.
It's an interesting point, that the industrial division, because another result that came out today was the JD Group. That's part of Steinhoff. Steinhoff are similar in many ways. They compete with you in many businesses, but on the other hand, what Steinhoff has done that you haven't chosen to do is to list or have various listed operations.
Well, I don't want to really comment on JD. I mean, they're friends of mine, but I think that we have one business which is common, which is the motor business. They're principally in the retail field, and we much more in the, I don't know what to call it, wholesale area. I think that in the industrial component piece of Bidvest, we have quite a big exposure to construction and to the leisure market, and both of those weren't particularly good in South Africa over the last year. But as I said, I think there's quite a lot of costs in the industrial division which went to cleaning up certain assets, and so I think the effort of the management is not really reflected in the actual numbers.
Financial services is another area which you have in common, where it's becoming an increasingly bigger part. Almost half of JD's profits, for instance, are from financial services. On your side, it has again been a successful period.
Yeah, I think a lot of our financial services are driven twofold. One by the motor business, and I'm sure in JD probably the same. And we also have Bidvest Bank, which of course has had a reasonably good year, and it also revolves to some degree around the motor industry and foreign exchange transactions. So I think we're very happy with what we've done in financial services, and it's always been inherent in Bidvest business. It just hasn't been highlighted as such in the past.
Is this an organic growth curve for Bidvest Bank? I ask this because quite often you see a new entrant into the banking market, like a Capitec, doing extraordinarily well. Bidvest Bank's been around a while now.
Well, Bidvest Bank's not really a transaction, a retail bank. It really revolves around forex and some forex applications. I think, it has been around a long. It hasn't been around a long time with Bidvest. It's been around a long time. It used to be on Siesta Volksbank, which I think used to be the government's bank, old government's bank. Um, I think that what we need to do in Bidvest Bank is to find more foreign exchange opportunities. And I'm just repeating. For us, it's not on our radar screen to get involved in personal banking, for that matter. We do a little bit of it, but that's not really where we're at.
So that isn't a big opportunity.
No. I think
despite the fact people don't like their banks, or many don't. Of course, not Bidvest Bank. Yeah.
I think, as I said, for us, we have got some very nice plans to internationalize some of the Forex applications that we've got. Now, we've got some skills in Forex, which seem to be a bit unique to us, and I would like to look to see how we can exploit that in the bank.
You mentioned the industrial side. The other sore thumb in this period was the write-off of nearly 100 million rand on the Comair investment. What's behind that?
Well, it's more or less an accounting thing that drove that. I mean, obviously, that's driven by IFRS marking stuff down to market. My personal view on Comair is that, it's the write-down. I wouldn't personally have taken the write-down if we hadn't been, forced to do so by under IFRS. But because I think the company is intrinsically good, and I think that their performance levels, are, I think, given the market they're in, going to be very, very good. And we obviously wait to see what their numbers are going to look like, and hopefully we'll all get a surprise.
It's a tough area. We've seen one go bankrupt, Velvet Sky. We've seen another one going into business rescue one time. Comair, with its Kullula and British Airways, has always managed to turn a profit, or mostly managed to turn a profit, but it's also gone through a rough patch.
Well, I think it's gone through quite a rough patch. I mean, they've reorganized a lot, and I think correctly so, and I think some of the plans that they've put in place is going to yield. Of course, it's very difficult competing against the government. At the end of the day, they're dealing against, a big pocket. And but I'm confident. I think the management's good. And I think, as I said, in the last 6 months, I think they've done a lot of good things. And now we just need to wait and see how that translates into returns over the next short while.
You were very consistent in those 24 years that you talk about in bringing up a big acquisition, not perhaps every year, but probably every second year. And it's interesting to note in the outlook for Bidvest for the next financial year, you say you're switching from restructuring and organic growth to organic and acquisitive growth. So can we hold our breath for another big deal?
Well, I'd also like to hold my breath for another big deal, but, we've looked at quite a few big deals over, even this last financial year. I think the big challenge for us is to find something that we can add value to and that's going to, give us some form of sustained growth. Just to make a big acquisition just for the sake of making one which dilutes your opportunities going forward, we just never have been part of that. And we're not really looking to buy the best company in the world. What we're looking for is something which is akin to what we do and where we think that we can manage the business better than somebody else. And so we continue to do that. I think what is going to change this year is that the scope of the types of acquisitions that we are prepared to do has changed, in that we're prepared now to internationalize many of the other activities that we've got. And we've
not just food services.
Not just food services. And we've also now entrusted certain countries to look for acquisitions in the areas which are not necessarily food related. So we have got expertise in certain countries, and I don't want to name them, but in those particular countries we are now looking to do other things. And I think that the ability to create a much smaller version of Bidvest in other countries, and I say selected countries, I think will create some opportunity for us, especially now that we are in a very low interest rate environment. I think whilst the price of deals hasn't come down, the cost of money has.
And that's a point that I'd like to explore with you a little. Again, getting back to one of your competitors, although they don't compete directly with you, Steinhoff, they have geared up enormously in this low interest rate environment, taken bets that some might think are excessive. In your case, you've almost done the opposite. You've been repaying debt. You're down to a tiny debt equity ratio. What's your view then on interest rates? Or what's it telling us about your view on interest rates?
Well, my view on interest rates is that interest rates are likely to remain low. I think in the South African environment, I think the only unfortunate thing is that I think smaller companies are not necessarily getting the benefit of these so-called lower rates. I mean, people are still paying prime rates, whereas I think if you take the Bidvest environment, we're probably paying 3 or 4 percentage points below the prime rate. But I think, certainly from our point of view, I mean, it's not like we're wanting to sit with more money. I think the issue is to spend what you do get wisely, so that you don't land up in a situation that you get burdened for many years with the wrong acquisition, even though interest rates are low.
But does it give you an elephant gun, as Warren Buffett put it a little while ago?
Yeah, look, I mean, Bidvest got huge capacity to. I mean, I say huge in South African terms to make an acquisition. But as I said, I mean, the world is a big place, and when you talk about $500 million, it doesn't sound like a lot, but in rand terms, you're already talking about 4 or 5 billion rand. So you need to spend wisely, and 400 million is not a huge amount of acquisition for in foreign terms. But it all boils down at the end of the day. The size of the deal is not really the issue. The issue is it's got to be a good deal, and good deals are never short of money. So I'm optimistic. We will find something, and I said we will find the right thing.
What's the biggest one you've made so far?
I'm not even sure. A couple of billion.
Mm-hmm. Rands.
So
if you were to go for that $500 million, that would be twice as big as your biggest so far.
Yeah, but it's relative. It wouldn't, even if it was 5 billion, I mean, that's just about 8% of Bidvest market cap. So it's a lot, but of course, relatively speaking, it's not huge.
How far would you push it? How far would you push a deal if it was the perfect opportunity?
No, I think that we could easily do, if we found the right thing, 20 billion, a third of Bidvest market cap.
Brian, just to close off with, and I might be wrong in this case, but you don't hear too much industrial unrest within the Bidvest Group companies. We've seen this as a feature in South Africa, and certainly we're all over the world's front pages as a consequence. What is it perhaps that you're doing different to ensure that that isn't a sore point for you?
Never tempt fate. Look, we try our very best in order to meet the aspirations of the people that work in our group. It's not always necessarily possible. We have quite a lot of exposure to national industrial councils and the like, in which case we don't really control the destiny of what really does happen on the ground. But it is sad for South Africa, I must say, that we as a country can't get this piece of our act together. Because if we really could, I think that we have a fantastic country and we have enormous opportunities to build something. It's just unfortunate that I don't think everybody's on the same team, and somehow or another we need to rise above it and see how we can get all to work in the same direction. And leadership is what's required, and our leadership needs to step up to the plate, and we need to try and draw everybody into a similar goal. And if we can achieve that, all the other issues that we're trying to grapple with, education, which to me is probably the most critical, and wealth transformation, which is obviously critical also over the medium term, I think many of these things will be solved. It's just that I think we're all pulling in different directions, and it makes it very, very difficult for people collectively and leaders, collectively to achieve the end goal. And so, we're fighting amongst ourselves instead of fighting against the real enemy, which is creating, opportunity and wealth for those that are disadvantaged.
Brian, how can you make a difference in that field? Do you talk behind the scenes? Do you engage with people who?
I think this is a bigger problem than corporate South Africa's problem. I mean, I think corporate South Africa is probably united in this one area, which says that we do need to have a much more efficient, effective, and better rewarded workforce. I don't think there's an issue, but I think a lot of the division is driven by political aspiration, and somehow or another that needs to get sorted out.
Brian Joffee, Chief Executive of Bidvest.